Hello, my name is Mark and welcome to an all new Retro Core, and I'm really excited about this show because it's going to feature my best system ever, the Sega Saturn, or in this case, the Hitachi High Saturn, but it's the exact same machine. So let's sit back and check out the hardware first. Sega Saturn. So this is the Sega Saturn hardware, and in fact we're taking a look at the pretty rare Hitachi High Saturn model. Now this model of the Sega Saturn is exactly the same as the standard Sega Saturn, but as you can see it's clearly marked as a multimedia player, not a games machine, as it says here multimedia player MMP1, and it also states on the actual machine that it can play CGGs, which is CDs with graphics, and CD digital video, which are basically video CDs. Now you open up the machine and the discs just go inside like that, nothing special there. Same as a normal Sega Saturn. In fact, the front of the machine also looks like a normal Sega Saturn with the two control ports, as you can see. And of course we have the cartridge slot, which is used for accessories, which we'll talk about slightly later. Around the back of the system, again, it's pretty much the same as a standard Sega Saturn. We have the multi-video out, the link cable port, and the power adapter port. And in here, as standard on an Hitachi Saturn, we have the video card. Now, the Sega Saturn also has a video card, and so does the JVC Victor Saturn. So here we go with the Hitachi card and the Victor card right next to each other. Now, one thing you will notice is that the Victor card states that it plays video CDs and photo CDs. Apart from that though, they both look pretty much identical. It is said that the Hitachi card has the best video playback out of the 3 different versions of the video card. That includes the Sega model as well. So the Sega Saturn did have a few officially released cartridges for it, but they are mostly in the shape of memory expansions, and were mostly used by SNK and Capcom. First of all, we had the Sega 1MB cartridge RAM, and basically that gave the Sega Saturn more memory to do more animations in games. But Capcom were not happy with this, so Capcom decided they wanted more, and eventually the 4MB RAM cartridge was released. This basically gives your Sega Saturn an incredible lot of memory. Yeah, that's why Sega Saturn can do some amazing 2D stuff. Then you had the official memory cards. Now these actually did come in a variety of different colours. The standard one in Japan was white, but they also had this weird looking green, which has got a strange colour, which came with, as far as I remember, the Tamagotchi game. There was also a pink one that came with Sakura Wars, and a variety of other colours. In the West, however, they were just black. And then we have unofficial adapters, such as this, the Pro Action Replay, which basically lets you cheat on games. So these are the only 2 Sega Saturn games that use ROM cartridges, not RAM cartridges. We got the King of Fighters 95, which was the very first Sega Saturn game to use any cartridge adapter, and Ultraman, which is ultra shit. Like pretty much all Ultraman games really. Now on these cartridges are basically the character animation frames. So without these cartridges in place, the game basically doesn't work because there's no character frames of animation. So to save on memory, they put all the frames of animation on these cartridges, and the Sega Saturn would just basically read from the cartridge when the animation frames were needed. So as well as the RAM cartridge add-ons, the Sega Saturn also had many other add-ons as well, such as your standard controller, which you can see a nice sexy black version of right here. Yeah, now that's lovely. The joysticks, the multi-tap, the mouse, memory expansion as we saw before, infrared pads, and then we got a few more interesting ones down here at the bottom. We have a keyboard, which did actually come out, a floppy disk drive, which did actually come out, and a hard drive, which, as far as I'm aware, never did come out. But not only that, the Sega Saturn also had a karaoke machine. That's right. And I did actually own it at one point, and it looks something like this. Yep, that attaches to the bottom of your Hitachi Saturn or any other Saturn. But if you think that's not cool enough, there was actually a karaoke machine made by Sega, or licensed out from Colombia, which did have an actual Sega Saturn built into it, and that looks like this. And I will do a special feature on one of those sometime in the future, so I'm sure you'll be waiting to see that. Now let's take a look at some of the Sega Saturn game boxes. So in Japan they really did love their special edition games, and to be honest, apart from Knights here, I can't think of any Western special edition Sega Saturn game. In Japan there were loads, and as I said, they all come in strange sized boxes. So we had the Knights one here, which came with the 3D controller, and we also had games which came with great big massive manuals, such as this, Romance 3 Kingdoms by Koei. There were loads of versions of that. This is the premium pack, with big manual in there. Then we have the likes of Cyberbots, which comes with a massive booklet inside, which is actually a 3D pop-up. Then we have the likes of this. This is Game Paradise or Game Tengoku. Now this particular special edition comes with an animated video, as you can see right there. And of course you get the game as well. And then we have something that looks like this. It looks like a 12-inch record, but in fact it is 3 demo discs inside one package. With Sonic R, Shining Force 3 and Machi. But one of my favourite special editions has got to be this. This is Advanced VG Special Edition. As you can see, it is massive. So what you get inside? Well, you get the game of course, and a massive big jigsaw. Let's open it up and take a look. As you can see, we've got the game here, and the jigsaw puzzle up there, and well, I'm not sure what this is. Something to smooth down the jigsaw, and that probably was glue at some point. But now it's gone all wrinkly. But for the most part, games usually came in normal double-sided CD cases like this, or single CD cases. Now the reason these cases are much better than those sold in the West is because the American ones usually just fall to pieces because they were really big and made out of really cheap plastic. And the English ones were kind of cardboard at first, which sort of fell to pieces, and then they changed them to the plastic clamshell, which were a lot better. But the Japanese, they kept with good old jewel cases. In fact, let's take a look at the instruction manual a little bit closer. So here we go with a standard Sega Saturn looking jewel case. Now what would happen is you take off your spine card here, just a normal everyday spine card, nothing special there. And inside the box you would get the game disc, as you'd expect, and a full color manual. Now the full color manuals could vary in page size. Some could be quite thick, which would actually result in a slightly thicker jewel case. Now also inside you would end up with the registration card, as you can see right here, and the manual is your standard affair. Basically instructions on how to play the game, how to control it, and at the back of the book usually a little section to tell you how to handle your disc, but instead in this game we have a little bit to show you that the original elevator action is hidden in this game as a mini game. In fact, it even tells you how to get it up right there. Sega Saturn. So now that you know a little bit more about the hardware, it's time to take a look at some of the games. And we're not going to cover anything like the SNK or the Capcom fighting games, so no Street Fighters, and no Samurai Showdowns, and no King of Fighters. And we're not going to cover any Sega first party games either, such as the Panzer Dragoon series, or Virtua Fighter, Sega Rally, Daytona and so on. The reason being, everyone covers them. And the sad thing is, there are hundreds of great Sega Saturn games out there that nobody ever covers. So that's what we're going to do here on Retro Core. So let's start off with an arcade conversion that, like many, never left Japan. This is Purikara Daisakusen. So first you get to choose one of 3 characters in classic 90s arcade style, which I really like. As you can see, the game is played on an isometric viewpoint, but unlike many games in this style, the controls are not a problem. As you make your way through the levels, blasting everything in sight, as well as smacking things with your mallet, you can pick up a helper. The helpers are the source of your smart bomb attacks, and as a result, you are awarded with a new style smart bomb for each stage. Purikara Daisakusen is most certainly not a deep game, but that's just fine. Mindless and fun arcade action. So the first thing I should mention about Astra Superstars is that the screen looks to be shimmering. This is because the entire game runs in the Saturn's high resolution mode. Sadly, my capture card isn't so good at capturing this mode, so you'll see this shimmering effect in a few games on this video. Astra Superstars comes to us by Santa Claus, and is yet another arcade conversion of one of the most bizarre arcade fighters out there at the time. It's also one of the few non-Capcom games that make use of the 4MB RAM cartridge. To tell the truth, I'm absolutely terrible at this game, which is why you're watching it through the watch mode. But I do love the art style and the craziness and over-the-top combo system. If you're into over-the-top combination systems, then this is one game that you seriously must check out. PlayStation owners have Jumping Flash, while Saturn owners get Nipen manmaru from Tam Tam. Although the developers are different, you can see similarities between this and Jumping Flash. Bright and colourful is the order of the day when it comes to Nipen manmaru, and so it should be, since the anime it's based upon was also bright and colourful. For the Saturn 3D platformer, the graphics are really solid, giving the game a much more substantial feel than most. The controls are also pretty fluid for an early 3D game. It sure puts 3D platforming in something like Croc to shame, that's for sure. Every now and then throughout the stages you are given a mini challenge. In this case you need to collect more smiley coins than your rival. I like these bonus stages as it breaks up the game just enough. Another arcade port that stayed in Japan. This is Cotton Boomerang and is easily the best in the entire Cotton series. For those who don't know, Cotton is a witch obsessed with the Willow Sweets. In fact, the whole point of her games is just to find more Willow Sweets. In this outing you can choose between various versions of Cotton as well as a few sidekicks. 3 characters must be chosen, which can be switched between on the fly during gameplay. Also, if you die as one character, no problem, just take over as another. Kinda think of it as 3 lives. The graphics in this game are gorgeous. The lavish backgrounds are not only there for eye candy either, they actually serve a function, allowing you to rebound your projectiles from them in order to hit hard to reach enemies. Then we have the music, pure class, check it out. When we think of Tecmo, images of big-breasted fighters or hard-as-nail ninja games come to mind. We most certainly do not think of a wacky action puzzle game. Deron Deru is certainly a big surprise. Not only has it one of the craziest soundtracks in a puzzle game, but it's extremely fun to play. There are a variety of game modes, all with different goals. However, the main play mechanic doesn't change. Like many games of this style, you need to empty your screen while dumping all the residue onto your opponent's screen. The way this is done is so cute. Your jelly blocks sprout arms to link with one another. If 4 manage to connect together, they'll explode on over to the opponent's screen. Are you tired of the endless Capcom or SNK fighters? Well, don't worry, because on the Saturn, there are so many excellent 2D fighters by other companies, such as the amazingly good Asuka 120% Limited by Filling Cafe. You may have never heard of this series, but believe me when I tell you it has been around for a while in Japan. In fact, there's an unofficial release update for the Saturn called Asuka 120% Limit Over Burning Fest that was published on the main programmer's website in Japan. That's how deep the love for this series goes, and rightly so. The combo system used within this game is deep yet incredibly easy to get to grips with. There's also counter moves, specials and juggling in here. It's hard not to like Asuka 120% Limited. Oh, and let's not forget the beautiful animation and fantastic graphics. I really do like the style. This is all done without the use of any additional RAM expansions too. Everybody knows about Snatcher and Police Notes, both of which have excellent Saturn ports, but not many people know about Virus from Hudson Soft. Set in the 22nd century, mankind is in a strange predicament in which it can only find happiness in using Cybernet, a virtual world where people could experience simple emotions.
Freelance registration number GP050.
One day, a deadly virus was discovered in Cybernet. A special unit called Blue Metal was sent out to annihilate the virus, but something went wrong, and all the members of the unit were killed. You play as Serge Shaddix, a member of the Special Force, Stand. It's up to you to combat the virus and bring back your loved ones. Virus is an adventure game with shooter elements similar in concept to Snatcher, but with much more developed and frequent combat. During the adventure portions of the game, the player views locations and talks to characters by interacting with command icons from a bar at the bottom of the screen. The action portions of the game have you exploring areas in a first-person 3D view, where you will also encounter enemies, which must be taken out using the previously mentioned Snatcher-like gun sections. If the language barrier doesn't bother you, then maybe you should seriously check out Virus.
こちらこそよろしくお願いします。サブサポートは向こうのマリーが行います。 この仕事は決して楽ではないでしょうけど。
Dungeons & Dragons Shadow of Mystara from Capcom is one of the more pricey games on the Saturn, as it was released in 1999, late in the system's life. It also comes with another Dungeons & Dragons game, The Tower of Doom, which is also another Capcom arcade conversion. Shadow over Mystara is your typical Capcom side-scrolling action game, which really does work well with the Dungeons & Dragons license. All your favourite characters are here, complete with the ability to choose various weapons and magic that they may pick up throughout the stages. Linking stages together are cutscenes that add to the game's plot development and overall atmosphere. Unfortunately, if you can't read Japanese, you won't appreciate these so much. The good news is that they're not essential to the game's enjoyment. So 8 great Sega Saturn games down, and we've still got loads more to come. But out of the ones you've seen so far, which has been your favourite? Personally, I'm a big fan of 2D fighting games, especially the older ones. So this one running behind me, Asuka 120% Limited Burning Fist, it's one of my favourites. And it's so hard to believe it didn't come from the likes of Capcom or SNK, especially back in a time when a 2D beat 'em up, which is not by those companies, usually ended up being a bit on the, well, meh side. But no, that is one excellent game, and one that all Sega Saturn 2D fighting game fans should check out. But we're not done yet. Coming up, we've got loads more great Sega Saturn games, including a racing game that might just surprise you. And they say Ridge Racer couldn't have been done on the Sega Saturn. Let's check it out. Shutoko Battle Drift King 97 is actually part of the Wangan Dead Heat series that Namco published in the arcades and later on various consoles. Yep, Genki, the people behind the Wangan Dead Heat games, were also behind this title, which has its official sequel appear on the Dreamcast. You start the game by selecting your car, then a track to race along. Well, I say track, but it's actually a section of the Tokyo motorway system. The point of the game is to beat your rival, get his cash, and buy upgrades for your car. That's it really. At first you could be forgiven in thinking Shutoko Battle is a slow, poor handling racer. But once you've won a few races and earned some cash to buy upgrades for your car, you'll soon find that this is one excellent arcade style racer with great drifting controls and a solid challenge. Some may describe Bulk Slash as a cross between Virtual On and Burning Rangers. However, I think it is just one hell of a great original game that combines slick presentation, non-stop action and robots. What more could you ask for? You start off the game meeting up with your navigator. At first it would seem the only point of the navigator is to scream at you in which direction you should be facing. However, there's more to it. Each girl gains experience through usage, which affects their ending and the bonus art unlocked after the game's completion. If you're into collecting art, it's best to play well in order to please your navigator. There are 7 stages in Bulk Slash with various goals, such as enemies to destroy, an ally to protect, or keycards to collect, accumulating with an enormous boss battle, usually over the entire playfield. Not only that, but there's an impressive range of diversity to the 7 stages too. These are just some of the points that really make Bulk Slash stand out. A true gem of a game. Back in the day, many would complain about the visuals on Thunder Force 5, saying they were too low in resolution or that the game lost frames. But you know what? Playing it now in 2016, it actually doesn't seem as bad as I remember people saying it was. And best of all, it's graphically superior to the PlayStation port in many ways. Yep, Saturn fanboys will be happy with that. Extra layers of parallax scrolling, no bending polygons, more transparency effects. Yep, you heard me right, more transparencies. These are just some things which people don't seem to mention. Thunder Force 5 is an excellent shooter that blows away the much awaited Thunder Force 6, which finally did appear on the PS2 years after it promised to come out on the Dreamcast. You've got to try Thunder Force 5, even if it's only for the amazing soundtrack. Now for something a little different. Galpanic SS is based upon the classic Taito arcade game Qix.
すごいね。すごいね。
The idea of the game is pretty simple. Choose a girl, then guide your cursor around the screen in order to unveil the image hidden behind the mask. A very simple concept and one that works very well. Of course, it's not going to be that easy. Should an enemy touch your drawing line before you connect it, will result in the cursor exploding. Luckily, you can let off some bombs in order to take out some of the enemies. But be careful, because they can also let off bombs too. Girls Panic SS is a very simple, yet an extremely addictive fun title that's quite rare these days.
ご来店ありがとうございます。
Originally considered to be a sequel to Gun Frontier, also on the Saturn, Metal Black by Taito is a horizontal scrolling shooter set in the apocalyptic future. Nothing new there then, but what is new is the way your craft gains its power. You see, your ship feeds off DNA strands. The more you collect, the more powerful your ship will become. This is quite a novel idea, however it can also be the game's biggest downfall, as you are constantly scrambling to collect these DNA strands in order to keep your ship powered up. What makes it worse is that the bosses also need these DNA strands. This is where the game challenge really picks up and why, for some reason, I'm kind of addicted to this classic shooter. Most people know about Gun Griffon, but not many know about Gun Griffon II, as it never came out of Japan. Your mission starts as your plane is shut down by the enemy. Not taking any of that, you instantly engage in warfare. At your disposal are a variety of weapons, from a standard machine gun to rockets and even a napalm-like weapon. As well as walking, your mech is also able to run, slide and fly for a limited period of time. This is especially useful for when you have enemies trying to hide behind you. Just fly up and jet behind them to take out the enemy by surprise. The controls in Gun Griffon 2 are pretty much as they were in the original, so anyone accustomed to that game will feel right at home here. Those who have not played the first game, mind you, will have to take some time to accustom themselves to the controls. It won't take long though, and once you have mastered them, you'll find it second nature. The big question is, which is better, the original or the sequel? In all honesty, I do think the original is best, but Gun Griffon 2 is still a solid game, even if it does look as if it was made on a lower budget. Rising were always known for making great games, and Soukyugurentai is no exception. Some may call it a poor man's Valiant Silver Gun, but they're idiots. This game is no poor man's substitute for anything. What we have here is a technical marvel which really shows the Saturn's 2D capabilities, as well as the processing power to handle loads of 2D effects without the slightest hint of slowdown. A special mention must also go to the game's soundtrack, which is all produced by the Saturn's Yamaha sound chip. No CD audio in this game.
D-Xird.
Takara were responsible for bringing Toshinden to the world, along with the concept of a mediocre 3D fighter. There is something else that Takara wanted to do, however, and that was to push the Saturn as much as possible, and they sure have done so with D-Xird. Running in the Saturn's highest resolution, with full 3D arenas and light sourcing, this sure is an impressive game to look at. However, playing D-Xird is another story. The controls are rather stiff, with special moves being especially awkward to pull off. This is quite an issue that will put many gamers off. However, if you learn the character, you can have quite a bit of fun. Sadly, I've forgotten how to play D-Xird these days. So what you're seeing is probably how most of you will play the game. Stiff with less action than a Wii U game release. And there we have D-Xird bringing us to the end of this Sega Saturn special. While it may be the most technically impressive Sega Saturn game we've featured so far, it may not be the best one to play. Well, actually it's not too bad, as I said, once you learn the moves, but that can be quite a challenge in itself. So out of all the games we did feature in today's show, which was your favourite, and which games would you have liked me to have featured, which I didn't? And please don't say some SNK or Capcom fighting games, because everyone covers them. So maybe I can feature them in a follow-up video in the future. But for the next Retro Core, we're going to be taking a look at the Sega Mega CD. Yep, another underdog of a system, and one that has more good games that you may actually not know of. So we'll check that out, but for now, keep on gaming and enjoy your games.